Hi, this is Debbie and welcome to Book and Bujo, where I talk about all things books, bullet journals, and stationery. Today is my October TBRopoly featuring Becca's Spookoplathon. How'd I do in September? I am happy to say that I completed my TBR, or will by the time it comes around to October 1st. So I'm filming this a little bit early because I'm going to be traveling to go visit my niece. My mom and I are traveling out there to New York to go see my niece, and so I have to try and cram everything in to all the days before we leave, which is next week. So I still need to pack. I'm starting to get a little stressed out a little because I'm not quite ready yet, but we'll get there. My watercolor and or oil pastel painting, I've decided I may actually, instead of actually doing a watercolor per se, I'm going to do an art project. And for that, I'm either, I have this planned already, it'll be before we leave, and I'm either going to get the stencil put together and outline what I'm going to be doing on the molding for our bathroom. We have this one piece that kind of goes by our bathtub, and we want to draw a little something on there and paint on there. So I'm either going to do that, or I'm going to just do some sketch work, just practice some drawing, and I think that will be good enough in the spirit of what that prompt was. And then for my first book, it was an odd card, and that was a YouTube rec. And for that, I am reading The Crippled God by Steven Erikson, and this is the 10th and final book in the Book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, and it's a chunky one. But I only have this much. This much left, so I've already gotten through the bulk of it, so I only have about this much left. I'm on page 853 and there's 1128 pages, so I should be able to finish this in a week before we leave, and then that will just leave me a few audiobooks for the Readathons that I'm participating in while I'm traveling, and a couple Kindle books that I plan to read that are on my TBR for the Readathons, but not the TBRopoly. Yes, okay, so Crippled God by Steven Erikson. Highly recommend this series. Super good. Oh, I totally forgot. So I still have 2 rewards that I have not used yet. And one of those is to swap out a prompt for a read-along book. And the other one is to skip my next punishment. So I'm going to hold on to those for now and hopefully maybe use them in November's TBRopoly. Or October, since you haven't seen my rolls yet. No spoilers, right? And then, all right, next up, I have my cheat sheet down in my lap, FYI. So next one was, what was that? That was an odd, and that was to read a book with a green cover. And for that, I read Age of Myth, which is the first book in the Legends of the Final Empire by Michael J. Sullivan. And I did read that. Just finished it, actually. And then next was an odd book, and that was a small book to read a book under 300 pages. And for that, I read Troll Bridge by Terry Pratchett, and that is book 16.5 in the Discworld series. Next up, I landed on Amazon Borrows, and for that, I read The Night of Many Endings, and that was by Melissa Payne. Not at all what I thought the book was about, but it was very good. Just not what I was expecting. And then next up was, I landed on Go, and that was a free choice, and I chose The Fires of Heaven by Robert Jordan, and that is the 5th book in the Wheel of Time series, and I did read that, which is good because the live show is soon. Next one, I got an even card, and that was to read a TBR jar pick, and for that I got Jurassic Park, and I did read that. Very good. It does actually follow the movie fairly well. There are some parts where it kind of goes off a little bit, but I think overall the movie followed the book fairly well. It was very entertaining. it's definitely a classic for a reason. It's a very good book, and that's by Michael Crichton. I don't think I said that, and that's the Jurassic Park series. So I'm excited to get into the next couple books in this series just to see how they go. I love all of the movies. I know some of them are super cheesy and not that good, but I like them anyway. They're super fun, but definitely worth a read on the books. Okay, next up we had a nonfiction, and for that I read Dolly Parton Song Teller, and that is by Dolly Parton, and it was really good. So basically it's almost like a transcript of an interview. So Dolly Parton was interviewed by someone, and they had basically the questions from the interviewer and then Dolly Parton's answers, and then they had comments or whatever follow-up questions from the interviewer. On the audiobook, which is what I listened to, they actually had some of her songs play in between each of the little chapters or questions, and it was very enjoyable, so much fun. She is just an amazing woman, and I would highly recommend Dolly Parton Song Teller. Okay, so then my last roll was an even, and that was to read my most recent purchase. And that one could be an actual purchase or one that recently acquired. I should probably reword that. Most recently acquired, but this one was actually kind of a purchase. But it was Sunset Stays by Craig A. Falcon. It was interesting and I enjoyed it. It was good. I did read that. So I'm still in progress with some of my readalongs and readathons, but that doesn't have any bearing on my TBRopoly. So let's move on into October. Becca's Spookoplathon. Typically she does her readathon in September, and it's a full month-long readathon, but Becca and the Books was traveling, and so she moved it to October this year instead. So in October, I typically do 13 Spooky Reads in October, which is a readathon that I created where you would just read 13 spooky books during the month of October. So instead of doing that one this year, because I don't want to try and put too many things, because I'm not coming back until after the first week of October from my trip, and I don't want to have to be rushing and put more undue stress on myself than just the regular stress of traveling. So I'm not going to do that this year. I am just going to do Becca's Spookoplathon, and super excited about that. So I will leave her announcement video and links in the description box below, so you can go check it out and join in if you would like as well. All right, let's go on to how many books I will be reading in October, and let's go to the roll. So we'll start with my 10-sided die, and we'll roll and see how many books I will be reading. 4. So my minimum is 4. So I have a choice. I can either roll again and see if I get a higher number, or if it's a low number, I can add it to this, or I could just stick with the 4. Let's go ahead and roll one more time. 3. So I'm going to add those together, and we'll go with 7. I like that number. So we'll go with 7. All right, so as you could see, I got 2 small rolls, and so I just added those together to get 7. And let's see how many doubles and other extra books I may end up with. We'll find out. So, first, rewards. Alright, so I did complete my September TBR, so I get to choose a reward. That is to draw again to replace a prompt you don't want. Ooh, I like that one. I'll probably use that one. We'll see. And now, my October TBR is brought to you by Becca's Spookoplathon. I got to draw my reward, and this one is to draw again to replace a prompt that you do not want. And this one is awesome because if I get like big book, or, well, I always like big books, maybe not that one, but like a book with a water on the cover, or, because those ones aren't always easy, at least not in the books that I read, or if I get Rita's TBR jar and I get a book that I don't really want to read at that point in time, I can always put it back in the jar and pick it again. So there we go. That's my reward. All right, so let's just get on into it. I've got my little tracker here. We're going to start on go. So roll number 1. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A book with an orange cover. All right, so roll number 1 was a 6, and that was a book with an orange cover. And for that, I will be reading Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan, which is the 6th book in the Wheel of Time series. Roll number 2. Whoop. Slippery dice. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Spoopy. I did forget to mention at the beginning that my odd cards are the community shelf cards and my even cards are the chance cards. So in case we land on one of those. Well, number 2, we had a 5, and that is to read a spoopy book. So a spoopy book is a spooky book that's not scary. So if you think most middle grade spooky books, or things like, I moved them, it used to be right here. Where did I put them? Oh, down here. So if you think things like Bears in the Night by Berenstein Bears, so this one would qualify as a spoopy book because it's set in Halloween time, but it's not really super scary. So that's a spoopy book. Editing Debbie here to let you know that I totally forgot to say what my spoopy book was on my second roll. So my spoopy book is going to be Feet of Clay by Terry Pratchett, which is the 19th book in the Discworld series. All right, so roll number 3. A 4, so doubles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are we out of the woods yet? So that is a book set in the woods or a forest or has trees on the cover. And then roll number 3, of course, I got my first double. So we are now up to 8 books, which shouldn't be too bad. I usually read at least 13 books anyway. So my third roll, of course, doubles. Now I'm up to 8 rolls. It's fun. And I got double 2, so 4. And for that, I landed on Are We Out of the Woods Yet? And that is to read a book with either trees on the cover or set in a forest setting, something like that. So it's really weird. So on my Kindle, it has the cover in like the little picture, but when you open the book, it doesn't show you the cover at all, which is weird. So, I'll hold it up really close, but I will be reading Primitive, which is this one here. And that is by Mark Nykanen. And this is what shows up when you pull it up, which is weird. And it won't let you go back any to try and find a cover. So that's weird. But yeah, Primitive by Mark Nykanen. And I don't really know anything about what this book is about. So let's see if it has a synopsis. Sonia Adams steps into a limo at a Montana airport expecting to be driven to her next modeling assignment. Minutes later, she realizes the horrifying truth. She's been tricked and kidnapped. Plunged into the world of a neo-primitive survivalist cult in the snow-locked mountains of the Pacific Northwest, Sonia becomes a pawn in their mission to reveal a doomsday environmental secret. A secret the government and the energy corporations will kill to keep. I think it'll be a good one for Halloween, though. Kind of get that spooky vibes, and you got the nice little forest setting in the mountains, so excited to read that one and see what that one's about. So roll number 4. 10. Of course, I added more rolls, and so I'm going to get doubles. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What a ghostly scene. So that is a book that has ghosts, a haunting, or a haunted house. Okay, roll number 4. More doubles. So now I'm up to 9 books, but that's not too bad. I can still handle that. And for that, I got double 5s, and I landed on What a Ghostly Scene, and that is to read a book with ghosts, a haunting, or like a haunted house, something like that. And I will be reading The The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu, and I will be getting that one from my library, so I'll have to post a picture here. I believe that'll be ready to pick up from my library before I leave, so that'll be nice. I'll be able to have everything all ready to go for when I get back. And I don't really know much about that one either. That one is a book club pick for the Howling Pack with the Wild Sasha. Roll number 6. Of course there's more doubles. Okay, we're up to 10 rolls now. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Pumpkin Spice. So that is to read a spicy book. So either one you're excited about or, you know, spicy. Okay, roll number 5. Again, double 2s. More doubles. I'm up to 10 books. I guess I'm on my way to those 13 reads anyway, so 10 books. Okay, so book number 5, I landed on Pumpkin Spice. And that is to read a spicy book or a book that you're excited about, most anticipated, something like that. And for that, I will be reading The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. This is the 5th book in the First Law World series, and it's in his second standalone in that series. And I originally had this on my TBR for my readathons in September, but we don't need to have the book finished until the end of October, so I'm moving it to October instead, and I can't wait to read this. I really wanted to read it in September, but there were some other books I needed to make sure I finished first, so there we go. Roll number 6 of 10. Whoop. Misroll. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Most recent purchase. So this could be a book you recently bought, or it could be one that you recently borrowed from a library or got from a friend or were gifted. Doesn't necessarily have to be that you spent money on the book. Roll number 6, I got 9 and landed on most recent purchase. And for that, I'm going to be reading How to Take Smart Notes by Sanka Ahrens. And that is the book club pick for the J&R Book Club. Roll number 7 out of 10. Ooh, I was flinging dice everywhere. Of course, another double. I probably should have stuck with 4 rolls. All right, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A book with a green cover. Then roll number 7. Another double, of course. Why not? Up to 11 rolls. It's fine. I got it. You know, all my books aren't like super chunky or anything. It's fine. Just on my way to those 13 reads anyway. So here we go. I landed on, so double 5s, 10, landed on book with a green cover, and for that I will be reading Chain of Thorns, which is the 3rd book in the Last Hour series by Cassandra Clare. On to roll 8 of 11. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are we out of the woods yet? So this is the second time we've landed on this. So either a book based in a forest, an isolated setting, or with trees on the cover. All right, that would have been our last roll, but alas, we got so many doubles. 4 doubles already. So here we go, roll number 8. Got a 7. Not too bad. Landed on Are We Out of the Woods Yet? Again. For that, I'm actually probably going to combine 2 books for that one, because the book I want to read is actually the 2nd book in a series, and the 1st book and the 2nd book, they're fairly short. I think they're both under 150 pages. So it'll be like 220 pages or something if I read them together. So totally fine. They're both by Nasser Rabdi. And the first one is The Christmas Massacre. And that one, of course, we do have trees on the cover because they're, pine trees. It's Christmas. So we've got that. So it's the Raven Hill Butcher series. So this one is book 1, and the one I actually want to read is book number 2, And book number 2 is Return to Camp Solgahachia. And I actually had that on my list to read for a readathon not too long ago. I think it was the Camp Counselor readathon, and I wasn't able to get to it. So I'm actually excited. I want to get to it. I think this one's only 90 pages and the other one's like 110. So it should 200 pages together. So I'm kind of looking forward to reading both of those. So that brings me up to 12 books that I'll be reading, because unless I get more doubles, we'll see. All right, roll 9 of 11. 3. 1, 2, 3. Mary Shelley. So Mary Shelley is typically credited with inventing sci-fi. So read a sci-fi or a book that has sci-fi elements, like something that might have parallel universe or the multiverse or something like that. So my 9th roll was a 3, and I landed on Mary Shelley, and she is known as the original person who kind of invented sci-fi. So for that, I will be reading Grip by David Estes. This is the second book in the Slip series, and I'm very excited. This is one of the series that I would like to finish this year, and it's a trilogy, and so if I finish the second book, I only have one more to go. So I would like to make some progress on that. And the first book was really interesting. I really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to reading the continuation of that. That in a tumultuous world of population control, one illegal orphan has slipped through the cracks. Now, as a teenager, Benson Kelly has escaped certain death at the hands of the Department of Population Control, only to find himself the symbol of a rebellion, something he never intended. All right, roll 10 of 11. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Candy corn. And this is to read a sweet book. So read a cute romance or a cozy novel. Okay, my next roll was a 9, and for that I landed on Candy Corn, and that is to read something sweet or kind of like heartwarming, and you just think, Halloween candy. And so I have 2 options for this one. So my first option, which is one I'm really hoping to be able to do, but it depends on if my library gets the book or not. They have it ordered, they just have to wait for it to come in, and then I think there's one person ahead of me on the wait list, so I may or may not get it, and that is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson, and that is Secret Project number 3. So I'm excited to read that one. I've heard really good reviews on it, so I can't wait to read that one. But if for some reason it does not come in time, then I will be reading Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, which is the 3rd book in the Brown Sisters series, which is also one of the series I would like to finish by the end of the year, and so it would be great if I could finish that in October. Okay, roll 11 of 11. Last one. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is nothing I do better than revenge. Read a book with a revenge plot. All right, and then roll number 11. Is it my final roll? It is. It is my final roll. I got an 8, and that landed on There's Nothing Better Than Revenge. And for that, it's like a revenge or assassin type book, trope, thing. So, a revenge story. And for that, I will be reading Holy Sister, which is the 3rd and final book in the Book of the Ancestors trilogy by Mark Lawrence. And so I'm excited to get into this one. The first book I thought was good. The second book I really enjoyed. I thought it was great. And so we'll see how Holy Sister is. I feel like I've heard that the second book is the best one in the series, but on a reread, they're all really good. So what I've heard is if you read through this series and then the second series that comes after it, and then come back and reread them again, you get a lot more out of the first trilogy. So that's an option I may or may not pursue. We'll see. It's 2024. I'm still planning on rereading the Malazan World, so the 10-book series that I read this year, as well as all of the additional books that are by by the other authors and not just Stephen Erickson. So we'll see how that goes. So yes, Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence. So that makes 12 books and and that's because I doubled up on that one prompt to do 2 books instead of just 1 for that one. So, should I just go for 13? Let's see. Let's do one more roll. See what happens. I typically try and read 13 books in October, just in honor of the spooky season and the amazing number that is 13. So I only had 11. So let's go ahead and roll 2 more times and just hope we don't get any doubles. Let's see. So roll 12. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. TBR Vet. So these 2 rolls, roll 12 and 13, will just be optional ones. So if I don't get to them during the month of October, then it won't count against my TBR. Okay, 12th roll for my 13th book. And I got a 9. And I landed on TBR Vet, and it's The Vampire, with a Y, A Tale. And that is by John William Polidori. And I'm excited to get into that one because spooky season, so you gotta read a book about vampires, right? Because that's part of spooky season. So I will, if I have time, this book is optional. It won't count against my TBR, but I'm very excited to see what it's all about. And then I decided to do just one more roll. Instead of counting that, the 2 for 1, we'll just count that as 1 book. And so let's go ahead and do a 13th roll. All right, so roll number 13. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Another spoopy book. So I didn't actually have to draw a card at all, so I will not be using this reward this month, so I will save that one for next month. And for that, I got a 7, and I landed on spoopy again, which is great because I don't necessarily like to be scared, but I've got a couple of kind of thrillery, scary books on here. So let's do another spoopy, and for that I chose Hogfather, which is the 20th book in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. And that is part of the Around the Disc in 800 book club, or read-along, that I am a part of with Literary Diversions. Alright, so what other books do I need to read in October besides these ones? Let's find out. Okay, so book clubs. First up with the Backlist Book Club with Covers with Cassidy. We are reading Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, and I believe this is the book for October and November. September, it's the book for September and October. So Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is the 3rd book in the Book of the Ancestor. And then we also have The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, which is the 5th book in the First Law World, and this is for the Catch-Up Book Club with Becca and the Books. And then we have, for the Howling Pack Book Club, we have The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. For the J&R Book Club, we have How to Take Smart Notes by Sanka Ahrens, and I was able to get all 4 of those onto my TBR, which is great. For Buzzwordathon, we had to have magic in the title, and for some reason I thought I had access to the audiobook on this one, but I don't. It was a different book by Lee Bardugo. So, none of my other books had magic in the title, so I just found one that did, and here we go. So it's The Language of Thorns, Midnight Tales, and Dangerous Magic by Lee Bardugo. My library does have the physical book, so I will be reading that one physically. And then A Year in Aldea for Ariel and Karasu. Let's get out our little map here. So Karasu had signed up for Advanced Inscription class, and that was to read a dark academia book, which I have not read yet, but I do have a somewhat short one picked out. I was going to read Holy Sister, but I moved that to October instead, so I picked out a shorter book. Probably Piranesi, I think, is what I'm going to substitute in that, because it's only like a 7-hour audio, so I should be able to listen to that in a day, day and a half. I could easily listen to that on the plane and be done, because it's a 6-hour flight with it's a 3-hour flight, like a 2-hour layover, and then a 3-hour flight, so I have plenty of time to listen to audiobooks. And then, so now we have the option to inspect a new glyph, which is chapters are only numbers, or decipher an ancient scroll. Chapters have titles. So I'm going to go, I think Karasu's going in the direction of Decipher an Ancient Scroll. Chapters have titles, and he will be reading The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. Because the chapters do have titles. So that's one of the chapter titles. Ooh. But it also has a map. I think that's a prompt for one of them. That might be a prompt for Ariel. Maybe they could read the same book. That would be great. Okay, so next up, Ariel had to go on a date, a book with a romance, and she read that one. That was Long Live the Elf Queen by J.M. Carroll. And so she can either stargaze, stars on the cover, or adventure together, book with a map. So I could do The Heroes because that has a map. But the other one is Hogfather by Terry Pratchett, and it has stars on the cover. So either one would work. I have both of them on my TBR, so they will both count, and that's great. So there we go. That's my book clubs now for the read-along books. You're going to see a lot of familiar books because I like to try and get them all on my TBR. So The Wheel of Time, Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan, which is the 6th book in the Wheel of Time series. Chain of Thorns, and the Wheel of Time read-along is with Sandra at Got a Thing for Things. And then we have the Shadowhunter Readathon, which is with Lisa and Darian, with Love Lisa and Darian Reads. And that is Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, which is the 3rd book in the Last Hour series. And then we have the Cosmere read-along, and that is with Elliot Brooks. And this one is to read the Special Project number 4, which of course I will not have access to during this month, so I'll have to push that to a different month. But I am hoping to read Special Project number 3, which is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. But we also have the option to reread Final Empire, which is the 1st book in the Mistborn Era 1 series by Brandon Sanderson. And if I have time, I will definitely read that one, because I do have that one, but I let my mom borrow it. But I do have access to audiobooks, so I may just listen to it this time, because last time I physically read it. And then the Discworld series with Literary Diversions. We are reading Feet of Clay, which is Discworld book number 19, and Hogfather book number 20, and those are by Terry Pratchett. And that's it. I feel like there's not as much. I decided not to do any other readathons. There's some great readathons in October. Books and Bops has another one that's kind of like the Killers versus the Final Girls, and it's a revenge readathon, so only one will come out standing. Which is kind of fun, but I don't have the brain capacity right now with traveling and just all the readathons I have been doing. I've been reading all the books, but I have not been submitting my books. I'm so backlogged on my reviews, like I haven't even started any of my August reviews. I've barely even finished my reviews for the books I read in July, so I want to spend October catching up on getting my reviews done and posted, and not just like quick little, oh, it was great. I want to actually put some thought into them and write some good chunky reviews that, you have some meat to them and not just fluff. So that's my goal for October. So I do actually have some goals down here. You'll see this when I do my reading journal, which will be coming out in a bit. But I do have a place to put my goals for Q4. So this is kind of what I want to try and focus on for Q4, and maybe even going into Q1 of next year, maybe starting to figure out some of the goals I want to have for next year. And then books that I want to finish by the end of this year. So what books do I need to put on my November and December TBR? Do the books that I have on my end of year list, are those still practical? Like, are those still going to work? Do I still want to read them by the end of this year? Do I want to push them to next year? So those are kind of some of the things I want to get to in October. So what are you reading in October? Are you participating in any readathons? I would love to find out what readathons you're going to be doing. So put those down in the comments and I will take a look. I will probably not be participating in them, but I would love to follow along and see what everyone else is reading for those. And thank you so much for joining me for my very doubles filled Becca's Spookoplathon TBR, and I would love to find out what books you are reading in October. If you've read any of the books that are on my TBR, let me know what you thought about them. So leave that down in the comments. And let's put a little ghost emoji in the comments if you've made it this far or you're not sure what to say, just to let me know you were here in honor of all the spoopy prompts that we landed on. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything else from me, like my upcoming August wrap-up and my reading journal plan with me for October. Those are coming up soon, and I also hope to have a vlog of my New York trip. We get to go see a Broadway show, and we get to go to the Strand, which is an awesome bookstore in New York area, so I hope to have some footage for that, from all of that trip for you. So stay tuned and find out what all shenanigans my mom and I get up to in New York. And until next time, keep reading. Bye.